Okay, we're now in public session, so we now move to consideration of public petitions. The first petition for consideration is petition number 4817 from Ms Anna McKenna. This petition would like to see Drogheda County Louth attain city status. Before we make a determination on this, members have addressed some concerns in respect of the issue at play here, and I do want to give members a chance to intervene at this stage before we make a final determination. So, Deputy Cassells, did you want to intervene on this matter?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to comment on it and the petition is before us. As you have said, we've dealt with it now once before. It's in again before. I've had the pleasure of meeting the group on a couple of occasions. I think there's a number of things at issue here. One was the destruction of the old Borough Council in Drogheda, which was abhorrent. I think this was is a proud historical town with a proud tradition, and the removal of statutory powers from that proud town was abhorrent, as it was indeed in my own case of Navan. But it removed the managerial structure, it removed the Borough Council status, it removed the fact that there was no engineering staff specifically and a budgetary policy specifically for Drogheda, and I think that's wrong for a town of the size of Drogheda's status. The second thing at play here is the fact that we have a significant part of Drogheda development that sprawls into County Meath as well, that would use Drogheda as its base for commercial activity, for educational purposes, but is within the boundary of Meath County Council. So there's two maybe issues in the background there. But this is specific in terms of seeking city status. In the interim measures, I acknowledge that Minister Phelan has come forward with proposals not just for this part of Meath and Louth in terms of Drogheda, but other areas as well, where we have urban sprawl from a main town into an adjoining county. That was pulled from the legislation that we dealt with just after Christmas in respect of creating urban area committees, but I think there is huge potential for us as legislators to look at that so that we can get cohesive planning, because bad planning has happened in the past by just natural sprawl, and we need to make sure that the citizens, and this should be at the focus of everything that is driving us, that the citizens that are living in the areas of sprawl actually get the services that they require. And that should be regardless of whether you live on the Meath side or the Louth side, whether you live on the Kilkenny side or the Waterford side or the Roscommon side or the Westmeath side, with my colleague here beside me, Deputy Murphy, that we should be looking after the citizens and making sure that they are getting a good deal for the town that they live in. In respect of the campaign here, I note the presence of my colleague Deputy Fergus O'Dowd, an advocate for the town of Drogheda and a former member of the council himself, in terms of the fact that the town is naturally growing anyway. In terms of the status, I have an issue, and I have conveyed this to the committee and publicly as well, in terms of statistics being used in the composition of overall figures that would take in not just parts of the coastal area of Meath, but the wider hinterland of Meath as well, into Duleek and so forth, in the composition of figures. And I have a problem with that, which I've articulated, but I think that there is a way forward here for the people of Drogheda as a proud town to attain what they want. But I do reiterate, from my point of view as a representative of the county of Meath, that can't be at the annexing of parts of Meath to achieve that goal.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy O'Dowd.
I just want to say that I think it's a very important issue for everybody, obviously in County Louth and particularly in Drogheda and indeed in East Meath. The area has grown phenomenally, both in Drogheda, in East Meath and South Louth. The population, the CSO figures for the town of Drogheda is in excess of 40,000. And on the north side of Drogheda, there is planning permission at the moment for over 5,000 homes. And on the south side of Drogheda, there's huge development, both in County Meath and in Drogheda itself. So I think the critical mass will be reached by the next census. Now, the definition by the CSO, and I'm using their definition, will exceed, they tell me it will exceed 50,000 within the next five years or so. And I believe you should leave this petition open. I think the correspondence you received from the department doesn't address the issue of city status at all. So I think that's one good reason to keep it open. But there's an even better one, is that the people of the Drogheda area, they have no control over their destiny. They have no council locally. All of the administration is based in Dundalk. This is a town that is bigger than the administrative counties of Longford or Leitrim. It's absolutely unacceptable that it wouldn't be a city and have its own city manager. In the city of Galway, when Galway reached a population of about 38,000, they then deemed it to be a city. And what happened then was that the county manager of Galway became the city manager for Galway and the county manager for Galway. So they held both positions until they retired, and then the jobs were advertised separately. So I think as part of the process that the present county manager should be made the county manager of the city of Drogheda, and that when she ceases to hold that office, that a county manager for the city of Drogheda will be appointed. And in that way, you would have the merging of the budgets, and you would also have complete, obviously regulation of how budgets are managed and who gets what and who contributes to what support. The other point is, I think, is hugely important in East Meath, where there are huge planning issues. There's been huge controversy about developments in East Meath, which are the subject of serious complaints and serious high-level investigations in relation to planning irregularities. And there was one plan which was produced by Meath County Council and Louth County Council, which was a plan for the whole area, was overturned by a former municipal council area in East Meath, and that led to huge controversy, absolutely disgraceful controversy, and that's the best way I can leave it like that. So I think to avoid all of that, I would support that you seek further clarification, that you contact the Central Statistics Office, and that we would examine, if you can, now this is my first time in your committee, I'm not an official member, but the process by which an area becomes the nuts and bolts of what you have to actually do in terms of administrative joining up together. So I really believe that you cannot hold back the town of Drogheda. It is going to be a city. It is the biggest town in Ireland outside of the main cities. And I would welcome your continued keeping this issue alive in your committee and get further debates and discussions on further and new facts. But at the end of the day, we must control our destiny. We do not, and we have, there's a bids committee locally trying to raise funding to improve the town, to have additionality from the business community. They're very anxious that would happen. Drogheda wants to improve. Drogheda wants to grow. And recognising their growth is making the city. Making the city is only a word. It must have a city manager and the administrative powers that go with it and the administrative infrastructure.
Thank you, Deputy O'Dowd. So I think what we have before us is a proposal to keep the petition live, to keep it open. And I think we have to have regard to the response that we have received from the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government through its Assistant Secretary General, which in essence, once you read that document, it does not address the issue of city status, which is the subject of the petition that we're dealing with today. So on that basis, there is a proposal here to acknowledge the fact that there are concerns being addressed by Deputy Cassells in respect of the population of 6,500 that would come from the Meath side, if you will, and the issues addressed by Deputy O'Dowd in respect of the CSO projections in respect of reaching city status at and not too far into the future, within 5 years, as I understand it, or thereabouts. And given the fact that the department's response to this committee has not necessarily addressed, or adequately addressed, I would contend, the issue of city status, I think then that there is a proposal here to keep the petition open, to correspond with that same department again, and ask for further clarification in respect of the actual petition in respect of city status, and to be very clear about that. On the other issues, might I suggest that there are other issues in relation to the growth and development and planning issues? Could I suggest respectfully that that would be dealt with then within the relevant line department, which is the Department of, or within the line committee, if you will, which is the Environment Housing Committee, because I think it's through that forum that's the most appropriate forum on that one. So what I propose to do is that we would ask for your support to keep the petition open, to correspond with the department again, to ask specifically about city status, and is that agreed?
I support that, Chairman, and I support the fact that I think that the provision of the statistics by the CSO would not be just informative for indeed Drogheda, but indeed for many of us, in respect to that. And I agree with you, Chairman, that the response, whilst informative, addressing some of the issues that are at play, doesn't address the issue of city status, and that would be important to address as well. And can I also state, as I stated in my speech, that I fully support the reinstatement of the entire administrative structure, and indeed have a bill at committee stage trying to achieve that, not just for Drogheda but every major town in this country as well. And for full disclosure, I was born in Drogheda as well, and unfortunately have Loud stamped on my passport instead of Meath. So
you are allowed.
Good people of Drogheda behind you can't see your face at the moment.
It's fully sincere, Chairman.
And look, I thank the members for their interventions on this one, and I acknowledge the presence of the good people of County Louth here today as well. I think what we as a committee are trying to do is to try and broker some middle ground here, where there's an acknowledgement of the realities that exist on the ground, but without actually encroaching. And I understand the concerns of Deputy Cassells in that regard. So we are agreed that we will keep the petition open and we will correspond further. I thank the members for their time on that one. I'm going to move on very quickly. The next petition, petition number 419. I propose that we forward a copy of the response from the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation to the petitioner in a closed petition. Is that agreed? Agreed. Next petition, 619. I propose that we forward a copy of the response report from the Department of Justice and Equality to the petitioner in a closed petition. Is that agreed? Agreed. And then I propose that we adjourn the meeting until the 27th of March 2019 at 1:30, and that's agreed. And I just want to thank you for your attendance today. So the meeting is adjourned.